What happens when your own brother steals your inheritance and kicks you out of the family business with nothing but the clothes on your back? When 35-year-old construction foreman Garrett Sullivan discovered what his brother had done with their father's company 2 years later, his response turned a family betrayal into a multi-million-dollar reckoning that destroyed everything his brother had built. The phone's shrill ring cut through the evening silence of Garrett's penthouse office like a blade. He set down his crystal tumbler and stared at the glowing screen. Landon. After 2 years of complete silence, his brother was calling. Rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown Seattle office, city lights blurring into watercolor streaks across Elliott Bay. He'd been reviewing acquisition contracts when the interruption came. The mahogany desk reflected the soft glow of his banker's lamp, papers spread like battle plans across its polished surface. He let it ring twice more before answering. "Hello, Landon." "Garrett!" His brother's voice carried that same manipulative tone he remembered, but now edged with desperation. "I've been thinking about you, about us. I wanted to see if we could talk." Garrett's fingers found the edge of an old family photo tucked between investment documents. 3 faces from another lifetime. Him, Landon, and their father at the construction site. He flipped it face down. "Talk about what, exactly?" "Family. Business. You know how Dad always said we were stronger together." Landon's voice cracked slightly, the practiced confidence wavering. "I think it's time we put the past behind us." "The past?" Garrett leaned back in his leather chair, watching rain streak the windows. "You mean when you forged Dad's will and stole my half of Sullivan Construction?" Silence stretched between them, broken only by the rain's steady percussion. Garrett could hear his brother breathing, shallow and quick. That's not how it happened, and you know it. The will was clear. Dad left the business to me because I was more qualified to run it." "More qualified? Is that why you're calling me now, because you're so qualified?" "Look, I'll be honest with you. The construction market has been brutal. Sullivan Construction is facing some challenges. I thought maybe we could work together again, pool our resources." Garrett smiled grimly. Everyone in the industry knew about Sullivan Construction's problems. Missed deadlines, cost overruns, lawsuits from angry clients. Landon had driven their father's company into the ground in just 2 years. "And what makes you think I have any resources to pool?" "Come on, Garrett. Word gets around. I heard you're doing well. Maybe we could meet somewhere neutral, discuss possibilities." "Possibilities?" I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the city lights 40 floors below. "I'll think about it." "Really? That would be amazing. We could rebuild everything Dad started, make it even bigger." "I said I'd think about it. I'll call you back." I ended the call without waiting for a response and set the phone down with deliberate care. The satisfying click of disconnection echoed in the sudden quiet. 2 years. 2 years since Landon had stood in their father's office, fake will in hand, security guards at his back, and told Garrett to clear out his desk. 2 years since he'd been escorted from Sullivan Construction like a common thief, carrying his personal belongings in a cardboard box. The memories flooded back as Garrett moved through his penthouse, each room a testament to how far he'd traveled from that broken man with nowhere to go. The living room showcased Italian leather furniture and original artwork, so different from the studio apartment he'd been forced to rent after losing everything. That day in August 2022 remained crystal clear. Their father had been dead for exactly 1 week when Landon called the emergency family meeting. Garrett had arrived at Sullivan Construction's main office, expecting to discuss the transition, to figure out how they'd run the company together as their father had always planned. Instead, he'd found Landon sitting behind their father's desk with a lawyer he'd never seen before. The will Landon produced was dated just 1 month before their father's death, convenient timing that should have been a red flag. Dad changed his mind about the partnership structure, Landon had explained with false sympathy. He decided the business should have a single leader, someone with more administrative experience. Administrative experience. Garrett had been running construction crews since he was 20, had managed the company's largest projects, had earned the respect of every subcontractor and supplier in the city. But Landon had the MBA and the silver tongue. The will left Garrett a token $50,000 and their father's old pickup truck. Everything else, the company, the equipment, the contracts worth millions, went to Landon. "I'm sure we can work something out," Landon had said as security waited to escort Garrett out. "Maybe a consulting arrangement, part-time work." That had been the last conversation until tonight's call. Garrett moved to his home office, where the walls were lined with framed contracts and newspaper clippings documenting his resurrection. Sullivan and Associates Construction, his company, had grown from nothing to a $50 million operation in just 18 months. The first project had been a small residential renovation, funded entirely by that $50,000 inheritance. Garrett had done most of the work himself, sleeping in his truck to save on rent and eating convenience store sandwiches for every meal. But word of mouth in construction traveled fast. Quality work at fair prices attracted attention. The second contract led to a third, then a commercial project, then a city contract that changed everything. His phone buzzed with notifications, project updates, supplier confirmations, investor meetings, the kind of problems successful people faced. Every decision he'd made, every risk he'd taken, every 18-hour day had led to this moment. Landon thought he was calling a desperate ex-employee looking for work. He had no idea he was begging for help from the man who'd become his biggest competitor. The irony was delicious. While Landon had been running Sullivan Construction into the ground with his inexperience and arrogance, Garrett had been systematically stealing his best clients, his most talented workers, his reputation in the industry. Tomorrow would bring a very educational conversation between the Sullivan brothers.
The next morning, Garrett sat in his downtown office reviewing intelligence reports on Sullivan Construction's financial situation. What he'd learned was even worse than industry gossip suggested. Marcus Webb, his private investigator, had delivered a comprehensive dossier on his brother's failures. The numbers were staggering. "Your brother's company is hemorrhaging money," Marcus explained, sliding documents across Garrett's desk. 3 major lawsuits from clients claiming shoddy workmanship, 2 OSHA violations that resulted in significant fines, and this. Marcus pointed to a bank statement showing Sullivan Construction's account balance. They're exactly 14 days away from bankruptcy. The payroll account is already overdrawn. Garrett studied the evidence of his brother's incompetence with grim satisfaction. Every mistake documented, every poor decision cataloged, every shortcut that had backfired spectacularly. "There's more," Marcus continued. "Your brother mortgaged the company building to cover operating expenses. If he can't make the payment next week, the bank forecloses on everything." "Everything?" "The building, the equipment, even your father's old office. He leveraged every asset the company owned." Garrett felt a cold fury building. Their father had spent 30 years building Sullivan Construction into something valuable, something lasting. Landon had destroyed it all in 24 months through sheer incompetence and greed. What about his personal finances? Worse than the company's. Apparently, he's been paying himself an excessive salary while the business crumbled. 2 mortgages on a house he can't afford, 3 luxury car payments, country club memberships. Classic case of someone living far beyond their means. The phone rang as Marcus finished his presentation. Landon's name appeared on the screen like a ghost from a nightmare. "Perfect timing," Garrett murmured, then answered. "Landon." "Garrett, thank God. I've been thinking about our conversation last night. I think we could really help each other here." "I'm listening." Sullivan Construction has some incredible opportunities coming up. Major city contracts, high-end residential projects. We just need some temporary financial backing to bridge a cash flow gap. How temporary? Maybe 6 months? $1 million would solve everything. We could be partners again, just like Dad always wanted. $1 million. Garrett almost laughed at the audacity. His brother was asking him to fund the very company he'd stolen. That's a significant investment. I'd need to see comprehensive financial records, project details, everything. Of course, absolutely. We could meet today if you want. I'll show you everything. Landon, Garrett's voice carried a warning edge. Before we go any further, I need you to understand something. What's that? I know exactly what Sullivan Construction's financial situation looks like. The lawsuits, the OSHA violations, the 14 days until bankruptcy. I know everything. The silence that followed could cut glass. How do you know that? The same way I know you mortgaged Dad's building to cover your excessive salary. The same way I know you've destroyed everything he spent his life building. Garrett, listen. No, you listen. 2 years ago, you stole my inheritance and threw me out of my father's company. You called me unqualified while you drove that company into the ground through your own stupidity. I didn't. Here's what's going to happen. Sullivan Construction will declare bankruptcy next week. The bank will foreclose on everything. Your house, your cars, your country club membership. All gone. You can't let that happen. We're family. Family. Garrett's voice turned ice cold. You chose money over family. Now you can live with the consequences. Wait, Garrett, please. There has to be something we can work out. I'll give you back your share of the company. We can be partners again. You can't give me back something you never had the right to take. Garrett ended the call and leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of 2 years of planning finally coming to fruition. Justice wasn't always dramatic. Sometimes it was simply letting someone's own failures catch up with them while you quietly built something better. The bankruptcy papers would be filed by Monday. The foreclosure would follow immediately. And Garrett would be there to buy Sullivan Construction's assets at auction for pennies on the dollar, not to save his brother, but to reclaim what should have been his all along. 2 years ago, Landon believed he could steal everything and face no consequences. He was about to learn how wrong he'd been. 6 months later, Garrett stood in the renovated offices of Sullivan & Associates Construction, looking at the bronze nameplate that now read, "In memory of Thomas Sullivan, builder, father, visionary." His father's legacy lived on, but under honest leadership that honored both his memory and his values. The final irony came when Landon applied for a job as a basic construction worker. Garrett's HR department rejected the application due to the candidate's complete lack of relevant experience. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being better than those who wronged you, then watching them face the natural consequences of their own choices. Have you ever had family members betray your trust for money? How did you handle it? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Hidden Hearth for more family justice stories.